How many of you have been to any of my talks in the past? Raise your hands. Oh, nice crowd. So for those who are here for the first time, duck, which means there are two things you need to know about this presentation. A, it's interactive, which means you're not a wall painting or an oil painting. I will ask questions, and I do expect answers. That's one. Number two, if you participate, you may get one of these thrown at your head. Yes. Here you go. See? That's how it works. So I'm here to talk about my pet project, which is PHP ARI, and how it works with inside Asterisk and how you can use it to whatever you need to do. So just a few minor things before we begin, just a bit about myself. I'm a full-fledged geek. I admit it. And I really enjoy what I do. So I enjoy doing all kinds of crazy stuff with Asterisk, ranging from ARI, AGI, you name it, I've done it. A little shameless plug, because three of my colleagues are talking as well. We'll be talking today, slightly after me, after lunch actually, about fast and secured ARI, the idea how to build a secured ARI application. Tomorrow we have Eric will be talking about fraud. And tomorrow, Alec will be talking about adding mobile VoIP to your mobile applications. So it's really a really interesting talk. So let's get down to basics. When Mark created Asterisk, he said, I wanted to build something that doesn't exist. I need something to be able to take a telephony engine and write my own stuff with it. That was his idea. Well, the idea behind Linux support services back then, where Asterisk was born, and he said, I need something else. So the only inspiration that he had back then was CGI from the World Wide Web. Any of you ever wrote the CGI? Anybody remember that is? The standard indent, no fun. Mostly done in Perl, if you're lucky. If you're unlucky, you do it in C. I call it the segmentation celebration issue. Segmentation faults all the way. But AGI came out and we all loved it. Why we loved it? It was very, very simple. In our heads, AGI made sense. To anybody who came from the telephony industry, from telephony applications, it made perfect sense. It was synchronous, it was simple, it was straightforward, and it did exactly what it's supposed to do. That's how it worked. And the world said, yay, we love it. We love it so much that people started using it for all the wrong things. And we ended up with AGI scripts that activate dial and remain forever in your memory. And we ended up with the ever-dreaded dial parties. Everybody knows dial parties? Are you familiar with that script? It's a little script inside FreePBX that's so humongous that even some of the FreePBX guys say, oh, that part is horrible. We admit it, but it's true. But it's there and it works. And so we got the following. We got AGI, and of course FastAGI, and EAGI, which I guess nobody really uses. Any of you ever used EAGI? You know what it's used for? You can use it to do audio processing through an AGI using file descriptor number 3. If any of you can tell me what that is, I'm very proud of you. Anybody knows? You'll get a chocolate for it. Yeah, I have 2 participants. I have Sean at the end. Whoops, I'm not much of a shot. And another one. So what is file descriptor number 3? Good question. What are those? Right.
There is no standard for free, but in this case it's an application-specific stream of data to the AGI application.
Wonderful. Excellent. So I can tell you honestly that I know very few people that actually know that, but it exists. And of course, the DeadAGI, which is now deceased. How fitting. I think it's wonderful because when I started working with it, I said, okay, there's AGI, there's DeadAGI. What's the difference? Like, looks exactly the same. And of course, the ever-dreaded async AGI. Anybody ever done async AGI work? That is pure witchcraft. It's an AGI that in some form talks with manager on one hand and some external sources on the other, and somehow it does something asynchronously. Horrible. Now, not really horrible, I'm sorry. It works, but it's just awkward. This is not how things are supposed to be done. And we already said that AGI is actually synchronous. So async AGI, that means that it's a little unnatural into this entire environment that we're talking about, which is completely synchronous. And now, take 12 years into the future. So this was like 2001, 2002, okay? When everything started. Fast forward 13 years into the future, 2015. How is the world today? Is the world synchronous today? And the fact is the world is no longer synchronous. The world is actually asynchronous, and we can see it across the board. Websites are no longer synchronous. We no longer have traditional forms that post. We no longer have pages that need to be refreshed. They are active feeds. WebRTC changes the way we look at things. And that means that we need to change our way of thinking about telephony applications, and I don't want to call them telephony anymore. I would rather call these communication applications because they're now different. They do things differently. They are a mesh of information. They're a mesh of tools running from all sides of places and being able to do something collaboratively. So we need something that is different. Now, I would assume that most of the people in the room, if not all of them, have written a PHP script. More or, let's say, one or more. How many wrote more than 1,000 scripts? You have a few hands. Okay, so what can you tell me about PHP scripts? What are the issues that you run to when you start working with PHP? Raise your hands. This is a time to runt and say, God, I want something else. Yeah, go. Oops. Again? Inconsistent. And?
Don't try to use it as a payment.
Don't, yeah, good one. Although you can do it. There's a way to do that. Yeah, but it's not nice. Yeah. Speed. Oh. I'm going to run into an argument with that. Specifically because Andy, Andy and Zev, the creators of Zend, are personal friends of mine. We're in college together. So there's a way to optimize PHP. Yeah.
None.
None of them? What do you mean by none of them?
I'm using FastAGI PHP.
Yeah. And?
I'm good.
And you're happy. Exactly. So there's a way to do it. But it's tricky because PHP is different. It's not your traditional, let's say, programming language or scripting language like Python or Node.js. This is a different environment. And it has its caveats. So first of all, let's remember this. ARI is not an AGI replacement. Any of you thought that it is an AGI replacement? Raise your hand. Nobody raises their hand. Everybody's dreading in fear. Oh my God, if I raise my hand, I'm going to look stupid. No, you're not. Yeah, but it is not an AGI replacement. I remember in 2010, no, 2009, sorry, I had an argument with Jason Gack. Any of you remember Jason Gack? Okay, so Jason Gack or Gecki? Gecki, Jason Gecki. He used to work for Voxeo. And he was one of the people behind the adhesion project. And according to him, the optimal dial plan is one line, adhesion. That's it. And I said, no, that doesn't make any sense. And it's the same here. ARI is not a dial plan replacement. It is not an AGI or an AMI replacement. It is a tool that will enable you to do things differently. It is a tool that will get you to do stuff which you couldn't do before, even with PHP and all its caveats. And we're going to talk about these. So what is PHP ARI actually? So first of all, it's a class library for PHP. You can install it using Composer, so it's already inside Packagist, and all the nice tool that makes it really streamlined when you want to work with it. It is released under LGPL 2.1, which means you can use it to your bidding. If you modify it, please issue a pull request so we'll fix stuff, okay? Currently, it's only myself and there's another guy who sends in patches, but we are looking for other people to contribute more stuff, specifically documentation and examples and so on, which is a lot of in there. And it's battle tested. And what do I mean by battle tested? I have confirmed over 1,500 production installations and working applications of PHP ARI worldwide. People had sent me emails. Yeah. So Scott from DiGi and DeadAGI, he also helped a lot with PHP ARI. So the main issues, what are the main issues? What are the main caveats of PHP ARI? What would you imagine would be the caveats? Think of PHP as PHP, and think of what you know about ARI. Yeah? Does PHP support? Well, the answer is yes. It does support WebSocket. Obviously, it does support WebSockets, yes. Anything else? Somebody else said we cannot run a daemon. PHP is single-threaded. Sorry to say. A PHP script is a single-threaded environment. There is currently no embedded memory management for PHP. PHP is very much a very static scripting language. And that introduces a very interesting thing when you work with PHP ARI and how to do things. And event handling is still a little awkward. Okay? Now, I'm going to show you a few examples here that for a PHP developer will look completely odd, because it will look like I'm writing JavaScript inside PHP. That's what it's going to look like, and we're going to show you how it's done in a bit. So, without further ado, let's get some coding done. How you actually, have any of you ever used PHP ARI? I've looked at it. One person, what have you done with it? Oops, sorry. Sorry, Claude. A dialer? What do you mean by a dialer? Like an automatic dialer? Awesome. So, well, that's pretty easy to do. It's just one request. So you're not doing a lot of session handling. Not at all. Anybody else? Yeah. Your value-added services. Okay, now I'm interested. What are those? IVR games. Cool. I want to learn about that afterwards. That sounds awesome. That is the things that you can really do a lot of stuff with ARI. What you couldn't do before, like all these timers and all these TV games where you have to do. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yes. So a basic, well, ARI works with something called stasis. If you want to write an ARI-aware application and you want to use it to the fullest, not like just to originate a call as an AMI replacement, you have to write something called a stasis application. The stasis application runs through a WebSocket. Now, this is not the traditional way of doing WebSockets. Normally, there will be a WebSocket server, and you will write a WebSocket client. Here, it's a little bit the other way around. Okay, because what you write very much is working like a WebSocket server, while Asterisk connects to it and initiates stuff on it. So we have 4 primary components to our stasis application. We've got the constructor, an event handler. The event handler basically gets all the events from ARI and handles them accordingly, and we'll see the problem of that. We've got a connection handler and an executor. The idea is that everything is composed into one simple class, which is built out of these 4 components. You will initiate the executor that will connect to the Asterisk WebSocket, and we'll start listening for events and so on. What does the event handler do? The event handler is a set of callbacks. The idea is that ARI sends back events as it starts working. When you connect to the WebSocket, very much like what we used to have with AMI, okay, so somebody will call in, will activate the stasis application or activate the connection to it, and ARI will start shooting out events into that socket. For example, the first event may be, for example, I don't recall. For example, playback finished. Okay, I started a playback, and the playback finished it. Now, this introduces some issues that we're going to talk in a few more seconds. Making things synchronous inside ARI is a challenge and a pain. And why is that? Because any of you ever tried doing, how many of you already tried working with ARI to do other stuff apart from originate? One person. Okay, so what happens if I tell it playback, then another playback, one after the other? What do I get? I get two playbacks running, one after, immediately. Now, they will actually come in mixed. They will not come one after the other. Why is that? Because it's asynchronous. You get playback, I start the playback, and you give another one. So again, I start another playback. So you get two playbacks at the same time. I was very surprised at that. Yeah?
We've also experienced more than current calls. One call is killing everybody.
That can happen if you don't have session handling and memory management. So this is a very skeleton of a PHP stasis app, PHP ARI skeleton application that is available on the PHP ARI website. So what we can see here is actually event handlers. So this little thing, stasis events on, that means that this is an event that ARI has thrown out through the WebSocket and what I'm going to do with it. So for example, an event stasis start, I'm telling it, okay, put a notice into the logger, take the channel ID, answer the channel, and do a playback. Very simple, very straightforward. Or for example, on stasis end, I want to say it's ended, and I want to delete the channel to make sure that it's truly disconnected, for example. All fine and dandy, seems very simple. But again, as I said, if you try to initiate two playbacks, you get this really funky situation where every command you put into it goes into the stasis queue and is executed autonomously. So you can end up with 5 commands of playback, and you'll get 5 playbacks immediately. They will start playing one after the other. Not after, but on the other. They will mix together. So we have to remember this. It's an asynchronous environment. So what do we need to do? We need something to take which is asynchronous and turn it into something synchronous, right? How do I turn something which is asynchronous to something synchronous? What do I need? Session, maybe. Critical session, like a critical section, you mean? Okay, what else? Events. What type of event am I looking for? Start and stop, exactly. I'm looking for a stop event to be thrown out saying, okay, that specific playback is now gone. So if I look at this code, see this little thing here? It says play 1. This is an ID. This ID will be thrown out at the stop event saying play 1 is now stopped. I'm done. So let's take another look at another piece of code. For example, I'm looking for the playback finished event. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to say, okay, look for the playback finished. Is it play 1, play 2, or the end? And whenever I do that, I can go about and synchronize parts of the actions. I can synchronize playback and can synchronize all kinds of things inside the application. When do I want that? Why do I need a synchronous tool inside an asynchronous environment? I can daisy chain, exactly. What? Okay, daisy chain is a good answer, and you get 2 of these. 1, whoops, sorry, 2. Okay. What? I told you I'm a horrible shot. So we need to daisy chain these. And why do we need to do that? Because some games or some applications require that. For example, let's take a TV show. Anybody here from the, well, apart from James, who else is here from the UK or Europe? Okay, so you know these games on TV, late night, call this number, they show you a picture. So all these games are based on timers, really short timers, and all of them have to be completely asynchronous. How fast can you answer the question? Or other things. I don't want to tell, I don't want to say obscene things here. The example application that I just showed you and has an issue. PHP is single scoped. What does that mean that it's single scoped? Unlike, for example, if you take Node.js or PyARI, which was released by Digium, then it has this thing that whenever you activate a new instance of the stasis application, it will create like its own little memory space. Unfortunately, PHP doesn't know how to do that. So the minute you have one stasis application working with PHPARI, all of its memory is exposed to everything. That means that if two calls come into the stasis application, I need to be able, inside the script itself, to distinguish between the two calls. Now, in some situations, you'll say, I don't really need that. There's no big deal there. But if you have multiple calls coming in, and for example, you're re-implementing, let's say, either the dial application or a queue application with PHPARI, you need a way to be able to distinguish between who's who. So we come to session handling. And how do we do session handling in PHP? Remember, this is not a web environment, so you don't have the traditional PHP session handler, session start. Will not work here. You need something else. So there are several ways of implementing something like this. Normally, I would do it with something like an array. I'll just put an array in there. Every call comes in. I'll mark it into the array. I'll use it as a key value store, basically. If you want to use something like Redis or memcached, fine as well. What's the problem with it? Depending on your application, Redis and memcached are persistent, specifically Redis. Okay, so that means the minute your stasis application goes down, your sessions are still in there. If you didn't close though, and you didn't clean it up correctly, you'll end up with stale records, stale billing, somebody pays with his head or his job. One of the two. Take your pick. Yeah, sorry. So, questions up till now? Yes? Sorry? Inside PHPARI? Unfortunately, not here, but on the website contains a link to the Git repository, so you can see all of it. It is fairly straightforward in terms of how it's built. It has a primary controller or a primary interface that you work with, and then several interfaces for each of one of the ARI REST APIs. So that's very, very simple and straightforward. Yeah. Anything else? More questions, challenges. Okay, I'm going to go back to the guy with the game. What kind of games did you do with ARI? Trivia games? With ARI? Okay, and how is that working with ARI exactly? I'm trying to figure out what the gameplay is and where ARI comes in. So you've taken a traditional IVR game and turned it into an ARI game into a singular stasis application.
Yes. Before we had those apps in API, and when ARI came, we tried to do it also in
Okay. Okay. Cool. That's pretty nice. So you're basically listening to the DTMF accepted event, DTMF received. This is this event. Where is that?
Yeah.
This one. I didn't copy it.
Yeah, yeah. What you presented there, what we've actually experienced, the one that...
With the playbacks. Yeah. Sorry?
For every session, we serialize it to something like a JSON and
That's a way to do it as well. It's reasonable. Yes. These are all valid solutions. So the way forward. Now, PHPARI, I started about a year ago, It was something that was cooked up fairly fast for AstricCon 2013, actually, 2 years ago. I started, and it was done fairly fast. I am looking for people to assist, really. Like, I want people to help and contribute. So we're open to both documentation, pull requests, examples, whatever you want to put in there. The website is just waiting for content. Yeah?
I should also mention that we're doing about 1,000 concurrent calls a day on that.
With PHP ARI.
About 100,000 calls per day on PHP.
Awesome. That is awesome. We've done large systems, but this is very promising and also very unique. That is awesome. Really, I can't just but applaud you, because it's wonderful. It's wonderful to learn something like that. Yeah.
This is titled PHPAGI to PHP ARI.
Yeah.
What are some common things people do in AGI that are actually better to do in ARI?
Ooh.
You said it's not exactly the same.
It's not exactly the same.
What if we try to fit into AGI that this actually can solve with that?
Well, a lot of people, we heard of an example, for example, of a game. Now, games are interactive. Now, when you would traditionally do a game in AGI, you will start by building some kind of loop inside the AGI, but there is no way for you to actually go about and interfere with that loop. You cannot do anything. Once you're in the game, you either hang up or ask to be taken out of the game. There's no way for somebody externally to control the game. Now, when you work with something like ARI, and you've got all your game running inside an ARI application that is event-driven, you can actually take an external source, for example, a command console, that somebody looks at the game and says, oh, here are now my players, and you can interact with them. You can start thinking, okay, take this player, move him here. Let's change the game a bit. Let's modify the game. Because an ARI is an AGI is a self-enclosed environment. The minute it's up in the air, that's it. You have no more control over it at all. And that's the beauty of ARI, because you can take that control that is missing, that you never had, and put it back with a lot more stuff. Okay? For example, one of the things that I wrote with ARI was like a conferencing bridge control panel. Okay? It was just an exercise that I did for myself, or something that I built years ago with AGI and AMI, that was connecting to the manager, looking for events, and it was a pain to do. Really, it was a pain to do. And with ARI, it became really, really simple, because ARI, one, gave me the events I needed, gave me the interface back into the system to do whatever I wanted, and it gave me that control in a manner that was simple to implement. And it was meshing up not only the web world on one hand, because it's now fully REST, it was also meshing up the Asterisk world, which was becoming really simple, because I just need one application. I don't need the entire, all the tools around it. So it became a question of just building that conferencing control in a very organized fashion. Any more questions? So as I said, we are looking for contributors, so documentation, patches, ideas. Ideas are wonderful. I love ideas. If you have an idea of what needs to be inside PHP ARI, be it examples, or be it some, let's say, self-enclosed state machines that implement all kinds of stuff, I'm open to that. I'm open to anything that people would like to put in. Again, the website phpari.org, and you're welcome to contact me through the email below. I know it's kind of long, but it will be on the presentation, so you will be able to get it from there. Thanks for listening, and we still have a lot of chocolate here, so if any of you still want it, it's up here.
Right, thank you, Dan.
Thanks.